Thank you and welcome to this afternoon to the Governance Audit Committee of Milfordville County Borough Council here in the Council Chamber and online. For those people online, you can't necessarily see who's in the room, so I'll give a quick rundown. Myself, Chair Martin Veal, lay member Colin Prosser, Councillor Declan Salmon and Councillor Ian Thomas in the room. Councillor Andrew Barry is online and lay member Sue Erickson is online. We are joined today by Craig Flynn, Director of Finance, Sarah King, Director of Governance and Resources, Andrew Mogford, Policy and Improvement Officer, Andrew Wathen, Joan Davis and Helen Harbord from Internal Audit, Alice King from the Wales Audit Office, and our ever trusty support from the Democratic Services team. And of course, and not forgetting the Cabinet Member, Anna Williams-Price, Cabinet Member for Governance and Resources. The first time we've met. Welcome. The one apology, so apologies for absence. We have Councillor Geraint Thomas, who has a family member who has been taken ill, so we give him our best wishes to him and his family. Item 2, declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest anyone wishes to raise related to matters today? I have one which is rather tangential, but it's worth raising anyway, regarding to item 7, which is the corporate fraud enforcement policy. There's quite a lot of reference in there to prosecutions, and I need to raise my interest insofar as I'm a magistrate and therefore could be on the receiving end of some of these prosecutions. Moving on to item 3, minutes of the meeting, which was held on the 9th of December. Gosh, doesn't time fly? They're here. Yeah. Oh, we've been trying to get in touch with you, Councillor Barry. Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Ah, there you go. Yeah, welcome.
Good. Great, thanks. Just on not so much declarations. I've got to leave at 14:50, if that's okay. Apologies, but I've got contract commitments.
We'll see how we progress. Thank you, Councillor Barry. Thank you. Like it's moving swiftly on. Minutes of the meeting on the 9th of December. They're here for us to note and to check accuracy. Has anyone got any issues around the accuracy of the minutes as presented? No, as usual, of good quality. Thank you very much. Agenda item 4 is the action log arising from that and previous meetings. A couple of things to flag up. Number 1 on the list is to schedule a risk workshop or informal training for members away from the formal committee meetings. And updates need to be provided. I think I'm going to look to my right and ask Sarah King to give us an update.
Yeah, so just on that, Chair, myself and the Policy and Performance team will pick that up with the Regional Internal Audit Service and get a workshop in, if we can, before the end of March, Chair.
Brilliant, that's really helpful, thank you. Now we've got our new team in place, a new audit team in place, so it'll be a helpful timing to do that, thank you. Pleased to see the next 3 have been marked as completed, and finally number 5, which isn't yet due, which is when we get to the new municipal year and the new forward work programme is to be put together. We'll do that mapping exercise, and Helen Harbord, I guess that probably lands with you, but I'm happy to sit down and work with you to pull that together sometime between now and, as it says, the 31st of May. Okay, thank you. First substantive item of business today, therefore, is the quarterly update of corporate risks. To consider the report. It says from the Chief Executive, but it's actually coming from Andrew Mogford, who is our Policy Improvement Officer. Andrew, I'll turn to you.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies in one sense, in the funds, in the sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Williams-Price, do you want to do a general introduction first? My apologies.
Thank you. Just have to remember that this report obviously provides an update on progress and risk scores at the end of Q3 for 24-25 and builds on the actions implemented to address recommendations of the internal audit, which was reported to the last Governance and Audit Committee. Since then, the updated corporate risk register was approved at January's Cabinet meeting, and in addition, an updated corporate risk management policy and strategy was approved by full council. Obviously, following this work, we want to continue to strengthen risk management processes and our arrangements. Such a review of Q3 took place on the 15th of January as part of the corporate management team meeting. For information, there's been no changes to risk scores, however, updates have been provided against actions. And as I said, obviously, Andrew's here as report author to provide more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Andrew.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Chair. So, as Councillor Hannah Williams-Price just said, this is focusing on Q3. We brought Q2 to the last meeting. Now we're back in track, Chair. I think we bring these quarterly as planned. So you wouldn't really expect too many changes in the risk scores, as we've said. There has been some movement in the actions, and we have progressed across some of those risks in terms of completing some of the actions, particularly around our governance and performance. We look forward to bringing more updates in the next quarter, which will be the end then of this financial year, along with our annual report. So happy to take questions, Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. One sort of wider question really is how the role of this committee fits with the role of the scrutiny committees. Our role as an audit committee is very much around making sure there is a robust risk management process, and I think the paper and the meetings and policies you've discussed really give us assurance that those things are happening. But when it comes down to the scrutiny of individual risks, it would be helpful to understand the role of the individual scrutiny committees versus the role of this committee. So again, perhaps Sarah, you'd like to give us a quick overview of how the performance mapping works. Thank you.
Yeah, so members will probably remember that as part of the management response form to the performance management audit that Audit Wales undertook, we undertook to have in place from the new financial year, so from April onwards, a quarterly report that will come forward on performance, and that performance will cover finance, risk and performance against our corporate objectives. And in time, that will also cover performance against our transformation programme and matters in place later in the year. So those reports then, Chair, will be formal reports, and they will go to scrutiny committees and Cabinet for information and discussion.
Thank you, Sarah. I think that's really helpful to understand how performance and risk tie together and understanding the map. So one request from me, I think, is that the risk register has those 13 risks on it, which I can see, and I understand that these are sticky problems. They aren't going to go away anytime soon. But it would be helpful to understand where in the scrutiny process each of these risks is being considered, so that if necessary we can raise our concerns or seek feedback from those committees as to progress against each of them. So if there's a way of sneaking an extra column onto this already busy spreadsheet, it'd be much appreciated. Okay, thank you. Questions for Andrew or Sarah on anything in the risk register? We're happy to note the progress that's in here in the response to the internal audit report. Okay, I take no news as good news on that. It's a comprehensive report, and thank you for that. We'll turn on, therefore, to agenda item 6, which is the self-assessment report for 23-24. Again, I should bring in Councillor Williams-Price to introduce.
Thank you. Again, similarly, this follows on to a report that was provided in December 2024 to this committee, and since then it's also been reported and approved by full council. So this is essentially just to close that loop in terms of that relationship between council and this committee, that those actions have been taken forward and approved by council.
Really helpful. Andrew, is there anything further you want to add?
Chair, other than to say, as Councillor just correctly said, this now closes the loop. We've met our statutory duty, but if there is anything that the committee does want to delve into throughout the year, we obviously bring that back as needed.
Thank you. We've seen this report previously and had the opportunity to discuss it here and elsewhere. The kind of the section I'm kind of interested in is what to do next, and it says under 7.1 we will share this with relevant bodies. I presume since it's public, it's kind of already shared, but formally, do we share it with Audit Wales, I guess, Welsh Government? Is that the kind of list of things?
Yes, Chair, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. And my last question is, and here we are 9 months to 24-25, it won't be long before that one's rolling around. Do we have a timescale for getting 24-25s agreed? The reason I'm concerned, it's a comprehensive document, but if it's 10 months after the year ends before it's finalised, it loses some of its currency. So I wondered if there is a timeline, a timetable for agreeing next year. Don't know, Sarah, Andrew.
Yeah, that's a reasonable observation, Chair. We were slightly late this year due to vacancies in structure and myself and Sarah coming into post. We will bring that sooner. There are certain elements of data which are not clarified until into the following financial year. So some of them may go up as draft figures, but we look to bring that around September, October time, is the usual cycle, in line with what we've agreed with Audit Wales. So that's kind of the timescale that we're looking at after the summer recess.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you, Andrew. Anything to make it current can only be beneficial. Thank you. We can tend to move on. I think we are. Agenda item 7 is the corporate fraud enforcement policy. I turn Joan Davis, Deputy Head of the Regional Internal Audit Service, to introduce this one.
Thank you, Chair. Members of this committee may recall that the initial draft policy came in September to the meeting. Since then, the policy has been further reviewed and updated in line with current legislation and working practices. The adoption of the corporate fraud enforcement policy will allow the use of sanctions where appropriate, and it covers elected members and council staff, welfare fraud such as council tax reduction, social housing fraud, and any other fraud investigated by the Regional Internal Audit Service and the Council's Fraud Officer. Services included under public protection, planning and waste have their own compliance and enforcement policies, so they're not covered with this policy. Paragraph 4.7 of the report explains the main change to the policy since it was last presented to you. The policy now fully reflects the Council Tax Reduction Scheme legislation, which provides for financial penalties as alternatives to prosecution for any proven council tax reduction fraud. In addition, fixed penalties of £70 and £100 can also be applied. These changes are reflected in Section 5 of the policy attached to Appendix A. The decision-making process outlined in Annex A of the policy has also been updated to reflect the legislation to the Council Tax Reduction Scheme. The test of public interest has also been streamlined, so each case can be considered on its merits. This includes any joint cases involving the Department of Work and Pensions. The decision to refer cases for prosecution or to recommend another form of sanction as an alternative to prosecution, where permitted by certain legislation, will be taken by the Council's Sanction Panel, and this will consist of the Head of Finance, the Head of Legal and Democratic Services, and the Head of Human Resources, where appropriate, supported by the Head of the Regional Internal Audit Service. So following consideration of these amendments, a report will be submitted to full Council for approval of the policy and to delegate enforcement functions to Council officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. That's a really comprehensive introduction. Can I ask about Section 5, as you drew our attention to it, the sanctions? I presume those sanctions are very much in line with those introduced by other local authorities in Wales, and we are not an outlier in terms of the processes we've got in place. Is that a reasonable assumption?
Yes, yeah, that's correct, Chair. It's in line with others.
Thank you. And my other question is, you referred to the fact that this covers what is called in the title of the document corporate fraud, and you mentioned that waste and public protection are not included. My thought is, how do we make sure that we as a committee get the full picture of frauds across the organisation, thinking the usual suspects as well as the ones mentioned in here? Things like procurement fraud could be certainly a large area. How do we make sure that we have a comprehensive picture? The other frauds, I presume, are reported elsewhere to scrutiny committees. I wonder whether some thought can be given to seeing how we collect all those reports into one place, so that there is a whole authority picture on fraud.
Yes, Chair. We bring an annual fraud report to this committee, and we can work with officers then throughout the council to ensure that we do capture all fraud, not only fraud that we're aware of under this policy.
Excellent. Thank you. And we obviously saw it back in September. There has been some tweaks and amendments to it. Has anyone got any final comments on this before it goes to council? When is it going to council? Next council meeting, I presume. Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions. We're happy to endorse it for its onward journey. Thank you. And we look forward to seeing the fruits of the work in days, okay, months to come. Perhaps the more realistic timescale. Thank you very much. Agenda item 8. We have an overview of the global internal audit standards, which are newly introduced. And Andrew Wathen, head of the Regional Internal Audit Service, is going to provide a presentation. The slides are in the pack, so I presume you're not going to put them up on the screen, Andrew?
No, Chair. I'll just talk you through it if that's okay, because
Thank
members have had access to the information. Just as a very quick overview, there's a covering report as well. Before I go into the presentation itself, the Internal Audit Association globally has determined that it needed to refresh its standards, so they've now come up with the global internal audit standards, which all internal audit teams across the world now need to make sure they comply with. So members might be familiar with our previous reports where we've talked about us complying with the public sector internal audit standards. We now need to comply with, as an internal audit team, the global internal audit standards. So this presentation is a very brief overview, Chair. It's mainly to do how we function as an internal audit service and the service we deliver to move the council. But in terms of practice, if anybody wants to go through any of it in detail, by all means give me a shout and we can have a conversation outside of committee. With regards to the presentation, as I said, I'll just give a brief overview, so I may skip a few slides if you permit me to do that, Chair. There's been a worldwide consultation process, and these standards have now been confirmed as up and running, released for all internal audit providers from the 1st of January, but within the public sector they become effective from the 1st of April 2025. And they're complemented for the public sector in particular with SIPFA's application note and code of practice, which I'll come on to very briefly in a moment. They provide a framework for performing value-added internal auditing. They identify basic principles that we need to demonstrate for good practice in delivering an internal audit function. Also for committee, as I'm accountable to you as the Governance and Audit Committee, a basis for the evaluation of internal audit performance. The intention is to foster improved organisational process and operations and outline any specific considerations for performance and conformance with the standards. So generally we now need to demonstrate we conform or explain why we can't conform. To give you some reassurance, Chair, as we are compliant with the public sector internal audit standards, and we've demonstrated that both internally and via an external assessment, we will generally be conforming with the new standards, but there will be a few tweaks which we need to sort out throughout the year. So the new standards have been redetermined. There are 5 domains, 15 principles, 52 standards. And I'll come on to the detail of those in a moment. As I said, there's been worldwide consultation on these, so all deliverers of internal audit across all sectors must now comply with these standards. We need to take into account the laws and regulations of each individual country and sector. It goes through some governance and organisational structures and also talks about funding and resources, where public sector differs from the private sector. The application note from SIPFA goes into a bit more detail in terms of the general context for delivering an internal audit within the public sector in the UK, and more so around the political environment, which obviously doesn't happen within the private sector. It talks about principles of public life, handling information, value for money, and the role of regulators, and specific interpretations of those standards relate to resources, our overall conclusions, qualifications of the Chief Audit Executive, and the selecting independent assessors. So throughout the document, my role is referred to as the Chief Audit Executive. It's called different things in different organisations: Head of Audit, Chief Internal Auditor, etc. But in the new standards, they're trying to get some consistency, so it's Chief Audit Executive. We will continue to do an annual assessment of compliance with this new standards, and every 5 years we will need an external assessment, as we've done in the past with the public sector internal audit standards. So to support that within Public Sector UK, CIPFA have determined a code of practice which we'll also need to comply with, and we need to make sure we demonstrate we're compliant with the new standards and state that within the annual governance statement. So the provisions of the code of conduct for the which CIPFA have developed talk around providing the authority for internal audit, why we do what we do in the first place. Primarily within the public sector, within local government, there's a mandate, so we only provide it because of legislation. There will be an update of our charter, which we will bring to committee early in 25-26, and outline support for internal audit and the way they deliver their work. It's important that internal audit is positioned appropriately within each organisation, and our independence is key, and we need to demonstrate that. And I think that's supported by Governance and Audit Committee as well. We talk around the qualifications and experience of the Chief Audit Executive. That clearly needs to be demonstrated in order to deliver an effective internal audit team. Covers oversight of internal audit, so audit committee interaction, resources, quality and external quality assessment. So for us as an audit team, we need to make sure we've got an internal audit mandate, which is new. We need to make sure we update our internal audit charter, as I said, which we'll bring to committee for approval. We'll have to update all our documentation to refer to the new global standards as opposed to the public sector internal audit standards. And we need to demonstrate we are compliant. And we will comply with the CIPFA note and code as well. So in terms of domain 1, that relates to the purpose of internal auditing. Internal audit enhances the organisation's objectives, risk management and control, has influence over decision making and oversight, and comments on reputation and credibility with its stakeholders. And it's most effective when it's performed by qualified internal auditors in compliance with the standards. And it's independently positioned within the organisation, supported by the Governance and Audit Committee and by the senior management team, with the corporate management team. And we need to also demonstrate that we are free from any undue influence and committed to making objective assessments. Domain 2 talks around ethics and professionalism, covers integrity, objectivity, competence, professional care and confidentiality, hallmarks of how an internal audit functions, and we've been demonstrating that for many years in terms of the compliance with the previous code. The standards are then embedded within each domain. Domain 3 covers the governing the internal audit function, the reporting in to Governance and Audit Committee and the support from Governance and Audit Committee. Domain 4 is managing the internal audit committee and function. So managing the internal audit function. Don't want to take over your role there, Chair. So we need to plan strategically across the board, making sure we've got a risk assessment in terms of our plan. We can demonstrate that. We need to manage our resources effectively. We need to communicate effectively with our auditees and the senior management of the organisation, and we're always looking to enhance our quality and look for improvements in terms of the way we operate. Domain 4 then goes into a bit more detail in terms of planning the individual audits, how we actually undertake those particular audits, and how we communicate our objective conclusions as a result of that to the auditees and the managers of the organisation. So a very whistle-stop tour through there, Chair, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Andrew. That's really helpful, and I guess the proof of the pudding again is going to be in the eating and the implementation of this. One thing you mentioned up front was about a new audit mandate. And I think that's previously been taken as the charter, meaning giving you the power, the instructions, the ability to deliver the work. Do you see a mandate being a substantial document, or is it going to be effectively a roll forward from the charter?
Primarily will be the charter, Chair. The mandate will just refer to the legislation of how internal audit operates within the public sector. So, for example, council audit regulations in Wales and the Local Government Election Act in Wales as well. So we just need to refer to those in our charter specifically to make sure that there's a proper function of why we're doing what we do.
Okay, thank you. I can see Sue Erickson's hand is up, so I'll come to you next, Sue.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you. Looks like there's a lot to do, but it sounds like there's a lot already in place. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, you would. The current standards, the public sector internal audit standards, require us to achieve over 300 standards and requirements. So they've kind of streamlined those, but we can demonstrate we're compliant with all of those previously. As I said, we just need to top and tail a few of them, make sure we're completely compliant moving forward, because there's been some tweaks to the way the new standards have been presented. But on the whole, I'm pretty confident that we will be fully compliant.
My second question, sorry, would be from an audit committee viewpoint then, what would you say are the sort of key areas that we need to be considering? I know you were talking about the domains, and I noticed that one of them is about governing the function. Would you say that that's where our role needs to be focused on, or mindful of it all?
It would be to be mindful of it all, because I need to demonstrate to you as a committee that I am compliant. But from a committee's perspective, it would be to concentrate on the governing of internal audit. So domain 3, there are some training programs which we can circulate from SIPFA to help you carry out your function. And the intention is that we, chatting through with Sarah, we'll develop a training program throughout the year, and we'll make sure some of this is included within the training program, so you've got a better understanding of what your expectations are in terms of the new standards.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Andrew. Councillor Barry, your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Hi, Anand, how are you doing? You okay? So internal audits, I consider as being one of the pillars of governance. We've got several, and internal audit is absolutely key within that, in terms of sort of investigation and adjustment, as it were. With this major piece of work being taken forward, are there any plans to present what you've just said to us to all councillors, so that they're aware of the changes and the improvements?
Thank you, Councillor. Not at the moment. We can do. There's nothing in the plan to give this presentation to council or to cabinet. It's been circulated through to the CMT, but we could look to do that. In terms of the compliance side of things, we'll be reporting our compliance on an annual basis into committee, because we'll do a self-assessment internally. But as at the moment, there's no plans as yet to deliver this to the whole council.
Lovely, thank you, Ed.
Just following up on that, the previous regime and the new regime in terms of reporting don't sound hugely different. It used to be an annual self-assessment followed by a 5-yearly external assessment, and it sounds like that's still the way it's going to work. So as part of your end of year head of internal audit annual reports, you will include the self-assessment against these when we get to the end of 25, 26. Oh my gosh, looking ahead.
We will. Yeah, we will. Chair, yeah, we will definitely. Yeah.
Okay, and I guess the last sort of all-encompassing question is, from your look through these new standards versus the old public sector internal audit standards, is this creating any additional work, additional grief for you as a team, or is it the same stuff largely packaged differently? Is it more the same, or is it expanding the issues and responsibilities?
It is more of the same, Chair. We've got to be a bit more particular, a bit more specific in terms of conformance. So there's a bit of extra work to do to demonstrate that we actually carry out the function as required. But generally, we've got most of the documentation in place. We will need to tweak it as we go through. But part of it will be tweaking it as we progress through 25, 26 as well. I can't guarantee it's all done. It will all be done from the 1st of April. But we'll be working with it, working in terms of compliance and conformance throughout the new financial year to give you the assurance at the end of the financial year that we are compliant. And if there's any issues, any concerns I have, I'll bring that to the attention to committee earlier rather than later.
Excellent, thank you, Andrew. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Excellent. Okay, thank you for the presentation. I'm sure that taking Councillor Barry's point, the more that this stuff could be shared in terms, fully share the view that the audit is really important, and it's unfair that it gets sidelined just the audit committee. We shouldn't have all the fun, and there should be plenty of opportunity to share that around. So it's great if we could take that his suggestion away. Okay, thank you for that, and I'm grateful for the whistle-stop nature of the presentation. Agenda item 9 is internal audit progress against the plan, and I turn even further to my left, back to Joan Davis, Deputy Head of Regional Internal Audit Service.
Sorry, Chair, I'll take this one.
Sorry, Andrew.
Sorry, Chair, thank you. Sorry, John, still within there. So this is the one of the regular reports we bring to committee in terms of our performance against our plan, which the committee agreed back in June. So it's an update of where we are in terms of how well we're progressing through the plan and how the opinions are looking in terms of the output from our work. So this is as at end of quarter 3, so the 31st of December. And we, as a regional internal audit service, have set ourselves some targets to achieve by the end of each quarter with regards to completion of the plan. At the end of quarter 3, we aim to achieve 50%. For Merthyr, we've achieved 40%, which is not quite as where we'd like to be, but we are progressing well. And if we complete all the work that we've issued to the staff, which is currently in progress, then we're likely to achieve around 72% of the plan by the end of the year, against a target of 80%. It's roughly where we were last year. I think we were around 32% completion at the end of December, quarter 3 in 23-24, and we achieved 75% by the year end. Things always pick up in quarter 4 for some strange reasons here, but we've been doing this a while, and quarter 4 does tend to pick up in terms of the performance against the plan. So just to give members some information, Table 1, Para 4.3 identifies where the 40% has come from in terms of the issuing of final reports and draft reports, and members can also see the number of jobs we've got in progress at the moment as well. In terms of opinions which we've issued, they've been generally positive. 87% of positive opinions shown in Table 2, Para 4.4. So we've got substantial, reasonable, and then we've got 13% of limited assurance. So 2 in terms of the number of audit reports we've issued as limited assurance. 4.5 is just a memoir for members. There's a description of what opinions we use when we conclude our audits. And at 4.6, there's some further information about the limited assurance opinion that we've identified. The one in terms of the officer termination process has been reported to committee previously, and is a very brief summary of our key concerns of the ALN home to school transport audit outlined in 4.6. Where we have got a limited assurance opinion, then there's an action plan which the manager agrees to implement, and we'll go back and follow up and do a second audit within 6 to 12 months of that final audit report being issued. If we then get to a second consecutive limited or no assurance opinion, we'll be reporting that back into committee, and with the chair's agreement, we will advise that the service manager, potentially director, are invited into committee to give you as members the assurance that improvements will be made moving forward and action will be taken to address any concerns. That information is outlined in the appendices. And what we've also done, Chair, for members' information is to identify any outstanding jobs in 23-24, either that were in progress or planned and not completed. They're shown at 4.9 to show the progress of those jobs. As at the end of Q3, we've achieved 71.5% of those have been sent out in final or draft. Overall, we've issued 99 recommendations in 24-25, 8 high priority, 61 medium and 30 low, and the high and medium will be picked up in the report that Joan will present this afternoon. In terms of appendices, Chair, the Appendix A is the full audit plan and progress against that in terms of where we've issued a final, a draft, or the work is in progress, with a corresponding opinion and the number of recommendations made. Appendix B is a summary of all of that information, so it's clear we've got the figures from in terms of the stats we've quoted in the report. And Appendix C is the update for the 23-24 workload that was outstanding or incomplete. And apologies for the heading on that Appendix C, Chair, that's my fault, but the headings within the table do make sense. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Andrew. It's a comprehensive update as usual. I'll look at, I've got a couple of hands. I don't know what order they went up, but I'll go ladies first, and I'll take Sue Erickson first, then Councillor Barry. Sue.
Well, thank you, Chair. Thank you for that update. I just wondered, obviously, as you explained, you're at 40% completion at this point. What were the main blockers to the progress then going through the audit plan, and have you had full cooperation from management, or has there been any blocks there that have been difficult to sort of overcome in terms of working together to deliver the plan?
Okay, thank you, Sue. Yeah, generally we've got good correspondence, good communication with managers across the organisation. Sometimes the audits are a bit more complex than we thought they were going to be, so they take a bit longer. Unfortunately, audit is not an exact science, so we can't pigeonhole everything into a set number of days as much as we try to. We've got some vacancies within the team, so we can't do as much of the work as we would have liked, and we have people returning from maternity who are now working part-time, as is their right, when we planned for them to be working full-time. So I would say no major issues, but we're kind of working through the plan the best we can. We're trying to reallocate our resources and prioritise where we need to make sure we get as much coverage, so I can give you the assurance by the year end.
Thank you.
And Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of levels of assurance, the exciting ones are obviously always limited and no assurance from a geeky perspective. But one of the benefits, I suppose, of being regional audit is that you get the opportunity to compare with the other authorities that you work with. Is there anything within the performance of Merthyr that is different, or is it pretty much the same as all other authorities at the moment?
Andrew.
Thanks, Councillor. Yep, the performance is about the same. We're probably averaging between 40 and 46% of completion of the plans, so everybody's in the same boat. But like I say, in Q4 it does generally pick up, and where we've identified issues in one authority, we can then build that into the planning process for the partners which are in the organisation as well. Sometimes we need to do a special audit as well, so it's an unplanned audit. If we've identified an area in a particular partner which we feel is pressing, then we might incorporate that in terms of the workload for Merthyr as well. But generally we would discuss that with the Section 151 beforehand. This year we haven't had any of those, but we also get involved from time to time in non-audit work or special investigations, and that could impact on the the actual delivery of the plan as well.
Lovely, thank you, Andrew. Chair, just on the point that was mentioned earlier on about the school transport, just a declaration of interest from me that my company works with over school transport, so just to let you know.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. Well, duly noted. Sue,
Thank you, Chair. Just one more question, really. In terms of the actual audit plan, is there any audits that are still outstanding from the previous year? So 23-24?
Thanks, Sue. Yes, there are. That's outlined in Appendix C. So we've given you an overview of what of all of the jobs that were in the plan for 23-24, which were not completed, and there's a progress status there as at the 31st of December. So if you work your way through that, some show final issued, some show in progress, one is planned but not undertaken. So they've either been finalised or they're in progress. I think one is due to be undertaken in Q4 this quarter now. So hopefully that'll give you the information you need.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, members, for some interesting questions there. It's an interesting point out. It feels like, especially since you've mentioned the staffing is a little reduced from where you anticipated it to be, whether there are plans to recruit, add hours somehow to your availability, or whether whether you're going to look to set a plan which is a bit more scalable for next year. So, because the feeling about being behind schedule and what we can catch up. So, the first generic question is, will 80% or 70% or whatever the number is you're going to get to by the end of the year be sufficient coverage for you to form an opinion to include in your head of internal audit report, which is the most important question. So I'll leave that one there first.
Thank you, Chair. Yes would be the stock answer. I think we would cover enough work across all services, all key systems to demonstrate that we've got the assurance that we need based on the opinions that we've issued to give the relevant assurance to you in terms of governance, internal control and risk management. In terms of that, quantifying that, there's no exact science around that. It is very much a professional opinion, and it's very much an individual professional opinion. And people better than me have tried to quantify that and trying to clarify how do I measure that I can give enough assurance. Obviously, if I had more staff, more resources, then I could give more assurance across a wider range of service areas. But I've got to be practical. We've got to balance the resources we've got with the risks within the organisation, to try and spread the team and the knowledge across as many services as we possibly can, based on strengths and weaknesses. An objective opinion is we arrive at when we conclude the work, and then that enables me to give you the appropriate opinion. There's no hard and fast rule in terms of what percentage that is. It depends. If we only achieve 50%, for example, by year end, then I may have to caveat my opinion. But we'll be in discussions with senior management if we get to that stage. But I'm pretty confident at the moment that we're going to achieve around about 70% plus.
Thank you, Andrew. And of course, the percentage is slightly arbitrary because it depends how many pieces of work you program to start with, doesn't it? So if you program less work, you get 100% of it, but it still wouldn't. It would give you the same amount of coverage on it. My last area of questioning is around the limited assurance report, as you would expect us to focus in on the additional learning needs, home to school transport, limited assurance report, and you can see in the appendix that it's got the highest number of recommendations I think I've seen all year, which is 4 high, 10 medium and 2 low. And the bullet point highlights in the report are cause concern, I think it's safe to say. You mentioned that you will do a follow-up. I guess what my concern is that those actions need to be taken immediately. And have you had any updates on how the service has responded to this report, and if any of these are being closed off as we speak, if not already?
Thank you, Chair. Yep, a fair point. In terms of the recommendations we make, as you can see, there's high, medium and low. So if we issue a higher recommendation, generally that action needs to be taken within 1 month of the final report being issued. So then we would follow that up. The auditor undertaking that work would follow that up with the manager to make sure that has been implemented and addressed. Likewise with medium, there's a bit more flexibility around that. That tends to be within 3 to 6 months implementation, and low are for managers to implement good practice. So the way that the audit team works is that the auditor undertaking the work would diarise when those recommendations have been agreed to be implemented. Again, there's some flexibility with the managers, but that's all documented within the action plan, the management action plan of each report. And then the auditors would then follow up to make sure that those recommendations have been implemented by the date that's been agreed. We'll report on that continually back to us as managers within the internal audit team, but then Joan's report then later on will pick that up over a period of time and bring any concerns to your attention. It may not pick that one up, but we just need to double check on that one. But
yeah, thank you, Andrew. That's really, really helpful. And when responses to audit reports are drafted and the dates of implementation are put in by staff, you will engage in that process in terms of the reasonableness of those. So if you think it's important, and yet they've said we won't address it for 2 years, you say that's not good enough there and then, really. And I think that's really important to understand. So I guess we'll get a report, a follow-up report, and making sure that those are actioned as part of the routine internal audit recommendation monitoring.
absolutely, Chair. Yeah. And if we've got any concerns, we would take that to CMT for discussion as well.
Okay. And CMT see this report as well, don't they? So they'll already be aware of that limited assurance report. I don't see any other hands up, so thank you, Andrew, for that. That's a really helpful discussion. Agenda item 10, and now I do turn to Joan Davis, Deputy Head of Regional Internal Audit Service, for the Internal Audit Recommendations Monitoring Report.
Thank you, Chair. So this is another regular report. So the purpose of the report is to provide members of the committee with a position statement on the internal audit recommendations made, implemented and outstanding as at the 31st of December 2024. Appendix A provides the detail of the high and medium priority recommendations. So if I take you through the report, Table 1 sets out the recommendation categorisations used. Table 2 within the report summarises the recommendation status in respect of the audits completed from the 24-25 plan. It illustrates the total of 69 recommendations have been made as of the 31st of December. 49 have been implemented and 20 have a future target date. Low recommendations aren't monitored in this detail. Table 3 shows the recommendation status of audits completed in 23-24. A recommendation is made to enhance an identified weakness in the control to mitigate the identified risk. So until a recommendation is implemented, the risk remains. Table 3 shows that 9 recommendations are overdue and 10 still have a future implementation date. Appendix A illustrates that 4 of the 9 overdue recommendations, that's 3 high priority and 1 medium priority, were made in an audit of the security and access to council buildings issued in December 2023. Details of these recommendations are exempt to the committee and would be included under a Part 2 if necessary. However, to provide assurance to the committee, discussions are ongoing with senior managers to ensure that these recommendations will be implemented as soon as possible. The remaining 5 overdue recommendations in the report relate to the review of petty cash accounts held at council buildings. However, it's pleasing to report that they have since been implemented. As you're all aware, and as Andrew's explained, the monitoring of recommendations is undertaken regularly by the audit team, and any undue delays or issues are highlighted to the corporate management team via our escalation process and ultimately reported to this committee. And if I can just pick up what Andrew has just related to yourselves, in Appendix A, you would see the ALN Limited report there, and it's showing the 14 recommendations were made, and to date 3 have been implemented. That's 1 high and 2 medium recommendations, and 11, as at the 31st of December, had a future implementation date. So as Andrew explained, those recommendations will be followed up by the auditor concerned to make sure they're implemented as at the agreed dates. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. That's really helpful. And we, again, on the face of the report, the fact that some 130 recommendations that we made in the year, and we only had, as reported, 9 outstanding, or rather overdue, is a testament to the fact that this organisation takes these audit recommendations seriously and implements them along the timelines that are agreed. You mentioned that from the 9, we've eliminated all of the petty cash ones, which is terrific. So which leaves us simply with the recommendations relating to the security of and access to council buildings report. I wonder, since we have Sarah King in the room, you can give us a brief update on how things are progressing in that area.
Yeah, just wanted to bring the committee's attention to the fact that obviously you will have seen in the corporate risk register that CRR 11 is now looking at a risk around council building security and the precautions around that. So just to assure the committee that obviously discussions have started at that senior level to look at what work might be needed and what future plans need to be put in place to provide some assurances around that. But just to say that has been picked up as a corporate risk. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Joan. That's really helpful to report, and again, they'll continue to be monitored, and we'll continue to be kept informed as to progress. Thank you. I don't see anybody else's hands up, so we'll progress to agenda item 11, which is the Governance and Audit Committee Forward Work Programme. Helen Harbour for the Internal Audit Service team to talk about the Forward Work Programme, but noting this only covers this municipal year, so it doesn't look very far forward, truth be told. Helen.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so agenda item 11 is the Governance and Audit Committee Forward Work Programme. This is a report that we bring to each meeting and ask members to approve. In order to assist the committee in ensuring that due consideration is given to all aspects of their core functions, the proposed Forward Work Programme for 24-25 is attached as Appendix A. The agenda items included within the Forward Work Programme are not set in stone, and additional agenda items may be presented to committee throughout the year, and the Forward Work Programme will be updated as necessary to reflect this. Shown on the table are paragraph 4.2 are the items scheduled to be presented at the next committee scheduled for the 24th of March. There are 3 items in total. The final statement of accounts, including the final annual governance statement, the audit inquiries and those charged with governance report, and the regular committee Forward Work Programme. Committee members are asked to endorse this schedule and confirm the list of officers they would like to invite for each item if appropriate, and indicate whether any additional information or research is required. At this point, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Helen. Short and sweet. The obvious flag, therefore, is in there is the final statement of accounts and the annual governance statement. So I look to my right, and we have the Director of Finance in the room with us at the moment. Craig, can you give us a quick update on where we are with accounts, etc., and is that date going to be met effectively for delivering?
Thank you, Chair. I can see that Alice has got her hand up. Yeah, the audit is ongoing at this moment in time, and we still aim to bring the report if the audit is completed in that timescale to the next audit committee for consideration.
Thank you, Craig. Alice from the Wales Audit Office. Hi.
Hi, afternoon, everyone. We are still progressing towards that target of the end of March to provide our audit report. So I was just going to put my hand up to flag that should also be included on the Forward Work Programme. So if that can be added to that meeting as well. But as it stands, we're still on target to meet that based on the progress we've made so far.
Thank you. And so whilst there aren't many items on there, they are pretty substantive items. So thank you, Alice. Thank you, Craig, for that. That's really helpful. And Helen, obviously, once the municipal diary is agreed for 25-26, I'm happy to take it offline. We can work together to draw up the plan, and we can come up with a suitable spread of work across the year. And noting also the Then obviously we have some new members here. We've already talked about having some offline training about risk management and maybe some other things. So maybe we can look about what training programs we need as well for the rest of the year as well. Thank you, everybody. That's the last substantive item of business. Agenda item 12 says reflection and evaluation of meeting. There's one question. I guess I turn to my colleague Sarah King next to me. We have one vacancy on the committee at the moment. I presume that is going to be filled at some time in the future.
Yes, group leaders are working on that at the moment, Chair. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's really, really helpful. Other than that, no specific observations. It's been a helpful meeting. If people can't make it, people can't make it, but that's the importance of diarising these things. I sometimes look around the chamber, it's quite thin, but of course we're spread between being in the chamber and online, which doesn't, is the way of the world nowadays, I guess. Okay, thank you, everybody. Nothing else. Next meeting is the 24th of March, where I look forward to reading the accounts. Excellent. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you all soon.